back, everyone. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm your host, Steve Eisenhower. Today I'm going to talk about another reason through my studies of the Tanakh compared to the Old Testament, or the New Testament rather, that I left and rejected Christianity. But before I get started, everyone, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give me a big thumbs up. So today I'm going to contrast the Satan from the Tanakh, the Old Testament, with that of the idea of Satan or the devil in the New Testament, and how this contrasted idea really helped me leave, really showed me the truth regarding, evil and temptation, etc. So I'd like to point out just two verses of Scripture that really back up the idea of that the Satan works on the side of God, not opposed as a second power in the world, but rather the prosecutor, the prosecuting attorney on behalf of God. So the first scripture I'd like to read is found in 2 Samuel, chapter 24, verse 1. And again the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, Go count Israel and Judah. So we know this was the temptation of David to make a census of the people, which you're not supposed to do, right? But the main takeaway from that verse is who's the one who told him to do it. It says that the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he, meaning the Lord, right, moved David against them to say. Okay, so 2 Samuel 24:1, we see that the Lord is the one who tempted David to do it. So now, this would, by most Christian standards, be a Hebrew Bible contradiction. But to Judaism and the Tanakh, it's not a contradiction whatsoever, and we're going to now read 1 Chronicles 21:1, what the contradiction would be. So this is the same exact story, same exact event, different perspective, and what it says here is, and Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to make a census of Israel. So here it says that the Satan did it. So which is it? By the Christian understanding of who Satan is, he's the god of this world, right? The prince of the power of the air, all that jargon. He's a separate entity, and he's in stark opposition to God, and his whole mission is to take as many people to hell as he can, right? Well, the Tanakh doesn't see it that way. The Tanakh shows that, and we see this in the book of Job also, but we won't even touch on that. I want to keep this video short. So we see that the Satan, or Hasatan, the adversary, is on the side of God. How else could one reconcile these two verses together unless 1 Chronicles 21:1 is showing a more zoomed in picture of what's going on? So let me repeat the verses. 2 Samuel 24:1. And again the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, Go count Israel and Judah. 1 Chronicles 21:1. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to make a census of Israel. So it shows that they're on the same side. From the Tanakh point of view, there is no contradiction here. It's 2 Samuel 24:1 is a more overview, a more broad perspective that everything comes from God, right? So of course it was God who tempted David to make the census. But then you zoom it in, because we know that all angels have a purpose. For example, like the three angels that came to Abraham after his circumcision. One to tell that Sarah was going to have Isaac, one to heal his circumcision, and then one to destroy the city. So we know that messengers have a purpose. Angels have a set purpose. So what's the Satan's purpose? He's the tempter. He's the prosecuting attorney, right? And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing a zoomed in, more isolated event, and which messenger is being used to exact this, to prosecute, to tempt David to do this. And that's what 1 Chronicles 21:1 says, is, and Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to make the census of Israel. So it's clear, they aren't opposed. They're on the same side. The Satan is how our free will is exercised. If there was no prosecuting attorney, if there was no angel whose mission was to tempt us to do the things we shouldn't do, and we only had one option, one capacity, and that is to only do the right thing all the time, we would have no free will. We would be automatrons. We'd go through life, and there's no righteousness there when you don't have a choice, right? Us having the ability to do wrong is what makes us righteous when we do right. That's the entire point. I mean, Solomon says in Proverbs that the righteous man falls 7 times but rises, and the wicked stumble over sin. So we see from that directly that when we're tempted, even if we fall, when we get back up and overcome it and do better, that's being righteous. But we can't have the opportunity to be righteous without the option to be unrighteous. There can't only be just one choice. That's programming. That's being a robot. And that's not how this all works. It's not that the devil is this big, giant, powerful, evil dragon that's hell-bent on dragging us with him because he absolutely hates God, and he's our ultimate enemy. He's the enemy of everything good. That's dualism. That's Zoroastrianism. But rather, let's even put this into terms that everyone can understand. If you're in the courtroom and you're accused of doing something, whether you did it or not, the prosecutor on the other side of the courtroom is the bad guy in your eyes, right? Say you ran a stop sign, or you got something like that. The person who's bringing the charge against you, you would see him as your adversary in that court, right? Yeah, of course. But the judge is the ultimate authority, and it's by his ruling that, we're either punished or we're set free. So the prosecutor isn't a bad guy, really. The prosecutor may seem like a bad guy from our perspective, but from the perspective of the state and the judge, they are working together. Without that prosecutor, you probably wouldn't get to the bottom of any court case, right? So really, the prosecutor, the district attorney, and the judge, they are working in tandem with one another. Even if the prosecutor's case doesn't sway the judge, the court needs that prosecutor to come to the correct judgment. And it's the same way. We speak about the heavenly court, right? Same idea. So we as free will human beings, free will creatures with the capacity to sin and do what is unrighteous, we need that prosecutor to do so. And really, the Satan is a blessing. Hasatan is a blessing, because without him, without his temptation, we have no way of even being righteous, because we don't have the choice. So I'm going to keep it real short on this one, guys. That's all I wanted to cover. Is simply that the Christian idea that that the Satan, the devil, is this evil enemy of all things good, whose only mission is to drag us all to hell. If God is all powerful, he could just squash him like that. He wouldn't even. That's kind of the thing that Christianity leaves out. They really pull power from God and give it to someone else. If that was really the the devil's purpose and he was the stark enemy to everything good, what would stop God from just snapping him out of existence? Because he's a created being after all, right? And on top of that, angels don't have free will as you and I have free will. So how could an angel rebel, fall from heaven? So it doesn't line up. It's dualism. It's a blending of Tanakh rhetoric with paganistic, dualistic ideas. So yeah, they work on the same team. The Satan, Hasatan, is the vessel by which our free will is carried out. And without him, we'd be robots. But yeah, guys, until next time, I'm Steve Eisenhower. I have an ebook coming out, so be on the lookout for that. Will be coming out very soon. It's almost done. Davon Mays and I, we have a pretty big project underway right now, so also be on the lookout for that. It's going to be very eye-opening, I think. But yeah, guys, until next time, this was the Exodus Project, and we'll see you on the other side.